Hey guys, welcome to Red Line Talk Show. I'm here today with Iriana, and our special guest today is Renis Kuci, who is an award-winning cinematographer and self-taught entrepreneur. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Denise.
I had to say that word like 5 times.
Cinematographer.
Cinematographer. There you go. Renis, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
We know each other for a long time.
Very
I know
long time,
then you started this business, about 10 years ago?
So LLC'd up like as a business. I want to say it was 2018, 2017. Like that's when I registered the name as Renovision LLC.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've been around cameras all my life, and obviously even, I want to say what year were we met? I mean, when was the first Albanian parade
Oh,
that
that's
you guys
2008.
did? So 2008.
Yeah.
So at 2008, I had 2 years that I had just bought my brand new camera. That was like the professional camera, right?
Wow,
and like,
okay.
so I want to say 2006.
So you guys go way back.
Way back, yeah. Albanian roots, like the whole thing, the whole movement, And yeah, so 2006, I bought my first professional camera, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this, right? Like that.
So let's talk about a little bit about your background.
Sure.
Walk us through, a little bit about who you are, where you came from.
Yeah. So, well, I'm, originally born in Tirana.
Mm-hmm.
My background as far as, because everybody's like, oh, you're not from Tirana with that last name or whatever, right? Like it's always like the war between where you're really from.
Yeah.
3 generations.
Are you really from Tirana?
Well, right, yeah. So 3 generations in Tirana, right? So both my mom and my dad's side. As far as my last name, it goes back to the south of Albania. So I want to say somewhere within Vlor or whatever, any other village that's around there. My grandfather used to be a choban, right? Like in that sense, right? So it's like, but yeah, so born and raised in Tirana, and my family and I migrated to New York in '96.
Oh, okay.
Right at the peak.
Yeah, well, literally like right before like
Right
the whole
before.
Civil War that kind
I
of
came
started.
in 97, so yeah.
Okay,
yeah, behind.
So we came here in '96. And we started our lives here. My parents left everything that they had built there at the time, and excuse me, and it was just that that opportunity that they were thinking.
How
of,
old were
like,
you at that
I was
time?
11 years old, and I remember as today, like I turned 12 here. So we came here like March '96, and my birthday's in April. So April I turned 12 here. So started school. Not knowing a word of English, just basically whatever, I was taught in school at that time, in 5th grade or whatever, right? And the only word I remembered was picture in English. And, it took
very fitting with what you do.
I guess, yeah. But I remember that word because it was, like in Albanian, it was a funny word, right? Like pichker,
Yeah.
Like it was just like the whole...
We're going to censor that one, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Just kidding.
Yeah, so it was stuck in my head that way, right? But yeah, started school. English as a second language was like the main kind of like ESL was the main course that I took. It took about 1.5 years to pass. They called it the lab test. So you took this test, and they basically questioned you on your English and how well you knew it. So about 1.5 years, I passed that, and then I was able to take basically the regular classes that all the kids were really, was really taking at the time anyway. So I want to say about 7th grade, that's when like I started regular school with all the kids that were there. Anyway, so I mean, I guess we could...
What was one of your most memorable moments, either for good or for bad, that really sticks out at that time when you first came to America?
Oh, man.
As an 11-year-old boy from Tirana.
Yeah, so for as long as I could remember, I love sneakers, right? Even today, right? Like I have a collection a little bit, I know my wife is probably going to not be so happy about this because we do have a lot of sneakers in the closet. But so when we came here, man, I started seeing all these cool sneakers that all these guys were wearing in school, and Jordans and Nikes. And I mean, I didn't really know like the whole meaning behind them and what was what, but just the color waves and like the way that they looked. And I go to my dad. I'm like, man, look at the sneakers. Like, they're so cool. My dad's like, hey, sure. Why don't you tell me how much they are or whatever? Yeah. So, I found a pair of sneakers to like our local store. And I was like, I took him after work. I was like, yo, these are the sneakers I want. He saw the price. He's like, $85.
That's a month's salary in Tirana at that time.
Yeah. And he was like, and he's like, no. He's like, we can't do that, right? So that was my biggest, like, kind of memorable moment at that time when I was a kid, and I'm like, and I was told no, because in Tirana was a little bit different. Like, my family comes from decent, they're both entrepreneurs. They work for themselves, like, and as an only child, I didn't hear no as often, right? And now the transition started happening where it's like a lot of no's. But yeah, that's
someone
the
had to
one
get
thing.
humble.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I really stuck in my head. And it was always my goal to kind of like make it, make some money so I could go and buy those sneakers or any other ones that would come out throughout the times.
So walk us through the business that you started, right? Why weddings? What drew you to that industry?
Well, so usually in the whole, cinematography, videography, whole type of business, right? Usually most people that pick up a camera, weddings is kind of like the first thing that they get going, right? Because it's the easiest in a sense, where everybody knows somebody that's willing to get married, and those people are willing to get married. Maybe they have a good budget, maybe they don't, right? And the people that don't have a great budget, it's always nice to know someone that just starting out and be like, well, we could get this guy to kind of cover the wedding, right? And whether they do a great job or not, that's really, besides the point.
At least it's being captured.
Correct. Yeah, they have somebody going there. So, and obviously I bought my first camera in about 2016 or so. And so it was my aunt's birthday, right? 50th birthday, my favorite aunt. Shout out to my aunt, okay? Halarezi, I love you. So it was her birthday, and her son, my cousin, says, "Hey man, like I want to throw a surprise party, but I also want to capture your own video.
Yeah.
And do you mind and he had like a little handheld camera at the time. He's like, do you mind just holding, taking my camera and doing this? I was like, no, because I'm actually planning to buy the camera. And I'll do it with my camera. It's not a problem, and I want to get into it. So that was my first project, right? Like I bought this camera and I shot Halarezi's birthday party. I shot it, had a great time with it, and the response from the family was like, "Oh my God, beautiful video," and all that good stuff. So I'm like, that amped me up, right? So I was like, all right, what can I do next? And weddings, like I said, was kind of like very, very like a low hanging fruit where I could actually get them. I knew people that were getting married.
And you don't need that much marketing. It's more
Correct.
word of mouth.
It's word of mouth and who you know, right? Like, so like, a few friends in the neighborhood that were going to get married at the time, much older than me. And I was like, hey man, like, can I tag along? Like, can I be part of it? And they were like, yeah, we already hired some people, but yeah, absolutely, come through. You could be like, just stay away from the professionals, obviously, and this and that. So I was like, great. So I got into it and, shot a couple of those that way. And then little by slowly but surely, here comes a $500 budget where it's like, hey, we don't have like what we could pay like an original or the professionals to come in, but we could, give you $500 or whatever it was. And I was like, the time, I was amazed by getting money, right? Like, because I loved doing this at the time, especially at that time, whereas like, I just wanted to see the results of my like work, right? So like I would shoot it, I would go into the editing processor and get a final edit, and then I was able to build that story, and that's what kind of like connected me to this industry where it's like I could literally like tell a love story between this couple.
Mm-hmm.
So again, one thing led to another, and that's how I got into weddings, and kind of like branded out a little bit that way as well. And,
how is it as an industry? Is that demanding dealing with?
Yeah. I mean,
depends on the clients. I think.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, even with the easiest clients out there that quote unquote easiest, because there's no easy client, right? Like you always you're working for them and they have some type of an idea or an image in their head that the way they're gonna look and that their way, and sometimes when you don't deliver on that image, and obviously communication is key here, right? Like before the weddings you have to have those conversations and find out exactly what you're going for,
right?
Because you get the delusional clients, right? Where it's like, hey, we're throwing this wedding and we want it to look like this or like that, where winter and snow and this and that. Let's just say if that's the case, but it doesn't snow and there's no winter and there's none of that stuff. And you wanted to have this big centerpiece flowers, but those centerpiece flowers are not there. They just right. So, the communication is key. But yeah, absolutely, it's demanding, man. Sometimes you deliver the work and they were like, oh my God, like this is not what I was expecting, or I wanted something longer, or I wanted something shorter. And again, I mean, it's up to us to kind of go into it and, work it out. And the good thing about edit is that you could always re-edit, right? And as long as you captured it originally, the first time the right way, because obviously you can't go back. That's the biggest stress, right? Like, you can't say, hey, time out, let's redo this again, right? Like you tell the priest or the officiant to be like, can you do the vows one more time? Because I didn't press record, right? So
Have you had any of those?
No, thank God, never.
But besides communication, to be successful, it's also time management within the actual event
Yeah.
too. That you don't really have control of the time management of how things are going. That's
Correct.
more from the bride or the groom's side of the family.
Absolutely. One of my key like quotes that I tell brides is, especially when we're going over the schedule, right? It's like, listen, we could plan, but God laughs, right? Because things will happen throughout the day. The difference of, like, let's say Albanian weddings versus American weddings, right? Whether you're Albanian getting married in America or whatever, or even just an American getting married in America, everything is in one day, right? So the getting ready, the ceremony, the park, the venue, it all happens within 12 to 16 hours, let's just say tops. So therefore, there's a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
So you're going from one place to the next place. You can't control traffic. You can't control,
Weather.
weather. I've had issues with.
I know it was raining on our wedding the whole
Yes.
weekend. Remember?
And I've had issues with cars where, like, the couple wanted to rent out an authentic or an old school kind of Rolls Royce, beautiful cars, and then those cars break down in the middle of the highway, overheating, all these issues, and that you can't control. Or the worst, right? And this is my biggest pet peeve, when hair and makeup runs late.
Oh yeah.
Right? Especially with the brides, because we're scheduling, let's say, 2 to 3 hours of, the bride after she's ready, because no one wants to be on camera without her hair and makeup done, right? Like, in that sense, especially if you're paying for a professional to come in. And then, they run late for whatever reasons. And now that cuts into, like, our whole production and our whole, portrait session and all that stuff.
I mean, not everyone can do what we did. What we did was we actually broke it up into 2 days.
Yes.
Which I had to hire the videographer and the photographer twice. So that was an additional expense. Plus my hair and makeup was extra.
Yes.
But I really enjoyed both, getting ready, doing the photos, spending time with the family, the ceremony, and then the actual day of the wedding when the Kuci came to pick us up. And we actually enjoyed the moment. But it was an additional expense.
I could vouch to that.
I was like, can you do better on the price, please?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely, it's right. Like I said, like, when you're cramming in all these things
There's too many
within that
variables.
one day, and sometimes I feel for the couple. Not sometimes. I mean, I used 10 years ago, my wife and I got married, right? And we were on that boat where we did everything in one day. We went and picked her up. We brought her back to our house. Then we went to the park. Then after the park, we went to the venue, right? Like, there's a lot of traveling, right? And a lot of things are happening that, again, as a videographer or a cinematographer or a photographer or whatever, it's out of our hands.
So I mean, you've done a lot of weddings right until now. Any ones stick out, that memorable ones that you can share with us that were epic? No, not ours.
Besides yours?
Yeah, beside ours.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it really comes down to budgeting, right? Like, the most, and energy-wise, right? Like, you can't match that. Like, you could have the smallest wedding, the smallest budget, and if the energy is there, and if the love is there, and the families are there, and everybody's just as happy and thrilled about this event happening, you could have a great wedding, right? Like, you could show the love, you could show, and obviously I'm sitting down with you guys, but dude, that was you guys, right? In the sense where where the budget wasn't there, but like where the family was there, where you guys were there, like everything. I mean, I still remember your mom's face, how thrilled she was when we went over your house, and she was a bit nervous, obviously, at the same time, but also, she was. I don't know. She was ecstatic, right? Like, she was super happy about it. At your house with your mom and your dad, and everybody was super happy. So the love is there, right? But also, not to beat around the bush here, and to take make a long story longer. But we've done a few weddings where we're talking about the venue charged them anywhere between $800 to about $900 worth of plate, right, per each guest. And then
For each guest,
yeah.
Oh my
So
goodness.
Obviously, with that type of budget, now you need
did not
the
have that
flowers to be that budget, right? And now we're not talking anymore flowers. We're talking about trees as a centerpiece,
Yeah.
right? And then when it comes to that, now you also need the entertainment to be at that level, right? So now you're not just renting, let's just say, a DJ or maybe one musician or whatever, but now you're renting out, or you're hiring a full-on band.
A band, yeah.
And that band comes with their own kind of like, fireworks and sparklers and,
very
smoke goes
extravagant.
around. Right. So they go there. So we've done a few of those. And, as far as energy wise, because obviously once the guests also walk in, now
And
they're like,
"Whoa."
whoa, what is this? Right. Like, where are we at? And now their energy kind of thing also changes as well, too. So weddings like that tend to have that, that grand look and that whole energy, that vibe is also now people are like holding their chins up and, like it's a lot of that stuff, right? But we've done a few of those. But realistically, I mean, in my humblest opinion, I would say as long as the love is there between the couple, right? Because we
You
also
can
have done
feel
a
it.
few big
Yeah.
budget things where the couple were just like
Not into it.
not into it. They didn't know each other that well. There was maybe a few of those were for sure arranged marriages where
Yeah.
they didn't know each other that much, and every time we were trying to, especially on the portrait session with the couple, we're trying to show that love, and we're trying to look at him and run your hands through his back or his face or something like that, and
It just doesn't feel
it was
natural.
cold.
Yeah.
So how has the wedding industry evolved over the years, right? Especially with the rise of social media now,
Yeah.
and the influence with that.
So
Walk us through a little bit, because you've been in the game for what?
Yeah.
Over 10 years, done a lot of weddings. Have you seen a shift on how things are done now?
Absolutely. So I could tell you this, right? When I first started doing weddings, the cinematographer was basically a BTS guy, so a behind the scene person, right? So the photographer kind of ran the show, and he would tell the couple, okay, look this way, chin down, smile, do this, do that, right? And the videographer just literally stepped back and was kind of filming all of this. And then as an end result, you would get this video that looked exactly like your photo album.
Right.
Right, where the same pose that the couple had on the picture, now it's the same pose that you have on video, but it's seconds into it now, but it's no movement and none of that. And the reason that used to happen back then mainly was a small reason was lack of kind of like creativity on the videographer side of things, right? But also lack of technology, right? So cinema cameras or video cameras or whatever, they were huge. And you couldn't really move with them as easily as you can move nowadays with the cameras, right? Stability wasn't there, right? Like now we have all these gimbals and all these stabilizers that could kind of make this.
Evolved.
Technology definitely has helped us towards that, right? And I
Then
was
you're going through all different angles and
correct, yeah. And I was lucky enough to, when I started, that shift was happening, right? The cameras were getting smaller and they were getting, better in the sense of quality wise, and it benefited us, right? So now we could actually walk with the camera and not really feel that shake within, right? So I was lucky enough to get into that part, and my biggest goal was not to make these videos look as they used to look, right? Like, let's give it a bit of a film look. Let's have a story within. Let's have some type of love letter where one writes to the other, and now we read them, and now we're seeing them.
So
as they're getting
essentially, you're
ready.
producing the story.
We were and again, with the couple's obviously
Right, of
communication, I
course.
wasn't just coming in there and it was like, hey, we're gonna make you fall in love right now, right? It was
no.
more like
What I say, like, you're capturing their story.
yes, we were capturing their story, but with an intention in mind, right? Like we had so our quote right now for Renovision Weddings is, intentional films for intentional humans, right? So you have an idea what you want, and obviously we'll come in and kind of take that idea and see what we could do with it, right?
And
Like
bring it to life.
Bring it to life, but also, there's some ideas that can't be done, right? In the sense of that.
you definitely see the difference of watching a video from a wedding like 15 years ago versus now. Like when we watch our video or any of your videos that you've done quite a few of my family members' weddings. It's so engaging. You really you feel you're still part of that event. Where previously, when you would watch the videos, it's like it's on a tripod, the big camera, and you just watch the vala just going in circles.
Be like, hey, here I am.
There he goes.
Wait for the next 15 seconds. Oh, here I go again.
Rewind, fast forward.
Yes.
But you see the difference.
100%. And then also, just to go back to your question with the social media and how does that, right? So for starters, social media has helped us tremendously in the sense of being able to market ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. So now we're putting this, 12-hour wedding that we shot into a 30-second clip, or multiple clips, I should say, right? But like into a 30-second quick, short or reel or whatever you want to call it. And all of a sudden we get 10,000 views on it. Right. So those 10,000 views become potentially clients, or if not clients, definitely fans. So it has helped us tremendously. But also at the same time, we do live in that world where, whether you're getting married or not, you're still using social media, right? You're still taking a selfie, or maybe you're
Yeah, it's
still
part of our
taking
daily lives
it's
now.
it's
So
part of that. So now we're also, for the couples, now you're able to get something like that with us anyways, within the following week of you getting married, right? So now you're not waiting 6 months to get your quote unquote tapes or films or whatever. You're getting some type of glimpses off of your day really,
yeah,
really quick.
I mean, with the short attention span, anyways, people don't really, they
Yeah.
prefer those type of videos now versus watching the whole full, video.
100%.
Our grandmothers love those. They
Yes.
like to
Yeah.
watch the whole.
Yes.
the
Nobody
whole
has the
video.
time to sit there and watch a wedding
Well,
for 3 hours.
right, we
yeah.
don't, and it's funny because that's the conversation we do have with brides, right? So, like within our collections, and most of our collections are made for the couples, right? Like as we have that conversation and we find out what their needs and wants are, we could kind of put something together that makes sense for them, and obviously budgeting and all that stuff. But
Like for us, you had that short clip that went
Yeah.
onto social media, which is perfect for
Yeah.
sharing with your coworkers, with your friends. Like, oh, here's a quick highlight.
correct, yeah,
And then, that 15-minute kind of storyline that kind of just has a little bit of everything is
Yes.
for, you're having coffee with your friends, you want to just watch it. Here's
Yeah.
here's a little like sneak peek. And then the 2-hour, 3-hour one is for the grandmothers to
Yes.
sit down and just watch it all day long.
That's exactly like our conversation and how it goes with the couples, right? Like usually we say like the short clip, or like you said, the Instagram thing is for everyone that you're following or following
Yeah.
you back or whatever the case is, and saying, hey guys, congratulations, to get that congratulations, right?
Right.
Like we got married this weekend, boom, here it is. That 10 to 15-minute film is for the couple and their kids, right? Because let's think about it, right? Like if we have short attention spans when it comes to consuming this type
Our
of
kids
media,
definitely.
our kids are definitely going to have even a shorter, if anything, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously the long form, and honestly, the long form is only a hit with the Albanians, right? Like a lot of my American weddings, they don't even want that.
Mm.
Oh no, I wanted it.
Of course you did, but but also you're Albanian, so yeah.
So speaking a little bit about, it's a highly competitive industry.
Yeah.
So how do you, as a business, how do you guys try to stand out, apart from the other competitors, especially in the Albanian market as well? Because again, how many, I don't know the
How many companies?
how many companies are out there that do this type
I
of work?
mean, without going into the names or whatever, right? But I want to say there's at least 3 reputable studios out there, right?
Okay.
That you could count on, right? Because also maybe we could talk a little bit about like the difference between a dude with a backpack that could shoot a great wedding and a studio that could shoot a great wedding, right? The difference between those two is that yes, that one person could definitely give you some good content and a finalized film or whatever, but the way that the industry works is where couples come and book us, they book us in a year in advance, or at least 6 months at minimum in advance, right? To get that date locked in and everything like that. So if I'm saying yes to you guys for your wedding, that's going to be next year, let's say, right? As a studio, I'm promising that we will be there. Where with the guy with the backpack saying yes to it, you don't know if he's going to be there or not, right? And he might, right? Like but if he might be sick, something might happen to his gear. We don't know, right? Like in that sense. But obviously, also that's also the budgeting comes in as well, because I'm sure a studio is going to charge way more than that. So going back to that, there's 3 reputable studios that are in here that I consider them full-on professionals and that do the right thing. As far as style goes, that really comes down to the couples and to each his own, right? Like as far as that preference goes, right? And if the way that we distinguish ourselves is by doing multiple, short clips and putting ourselves out there. And the difference, I think, is that we definitely have a different way of shooting it, right? It's more intimate. It's more close-ups. It's more, and this is just visuals that I'm throwing your way, right? It's not necessarily like, or that,
Yeah.
But visually wise, like our looks are definitely to its own, right? Like you see a Renovision film, it's a Renovision film, whether I was there or whether my, second videographer or third or fourth or whatever, my second team or whatnot. So we definitely have that look that, again, it comes down to our couples. If the couples like that style, then they definitely going to hire us over those other 3 studios within our, Albanian community.
let's talk about beyond weddings.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
Rainy
Thank
Vision.
God.
Beyond weddings, I said. So, Rainy Vision Studios, you have expanded your focus to include, collaborating with businesses.
Yes.
To produce, digital advertising for their business and promote their business. Walk us a little bit through that side of the business and how did that develop?
Yeah, so I mean, and that developed because I needed to do that for my own business, right? So as even when I was only doing weddings, I needed to have a presence in social media, right? If not a presence in social media, I would have done some type of advertising on TV. That's a bit more on the higher budget type of stuff. Like you got to pay for your production, and then you got to pay a higher amount to show your commercial on TV. Where with social media is free, and as you take the train, as you walk down the street, you'll see where a lot of our potential buyers, their attention span is on their phones.
Yeah.
Right. So as a business, we need to be where their attention is. So I started doing that for myself, and then little by slowly but surely, I realized that every business needs this type of presence, right? Especially if your business has to do with the consumer, right? We were talking about regular people here, right? So whether you're a dentist or whether you're a car mechanic, right? Like you need to be where the attention is. So then I started working with businesses in that sense, where I started producing short form content for them, and then I realized that. You did one video. It was a great video. You posted it. You got a bunch of likes. You got a bunch of comments. Maybe you got a bit traffic, as far as business your way.
Yeah.
And it was great. But then that was it. You got that one video. You paid for that one video. But now what happens the next following day? And what happens the next following week and the month and something like that? So that's not, you can't just do one video and stop at it, right? Like the game is you need to post constantly. So you could be in front of these people with this short attention span. And then we started, tweaking our packages where now we're doing monthly content for the businesses, right?
Okay.
So now we're depending on budgeting and depending on how often do you want to show up in people's feeds.
So in a way, you guys are becoming a marketing consultant type of, to the business to see if you can drive more engagement through video production or.
Right, absolutely. I mean, it's not a if, right? Like it's a matter of how much eyes do you want on you, right? And how much of a budget do you have? Because if you have a large budget and you want a lot of eyes on you, we could get you those eyes. It's a proven formula over and over and over. The more you post, the more engagement you will get.
Yeah. And as far as budgeting goes, it's a topic that everyone is interested about. Where do you see yourself? Are you competitive compared to other companies? Do you work with the businesses that don't have such a huge budget to play around with?
So as far as competitive, right, we have to also who we're competing against, right? And in the fields that we currently are doing, right? So we're working with a few different industries as far as businesses goes, right? So we work with restaurants, we work with construction companies, and obviously construction is huge because now we're talking plumbing, electric, drywall, whatever, all these other divisions that are their own entities, and then you take us, matching us with a different company. We are definitely with studios. We're definitely compatible, right? Like as far as pricing goes, we're right there. And then if not, maybe 10% cheaper than a studio that's been doing this for the last 20 years. If you're gonna compete, if you're gonna add us up to the guy with the book bag and he has 2 cameras on him and he could potentially do this type of content on himself, then we're definitely way more expensive than that person individual is, right? And there's many reasons for that, obviously, right? One is experience, 2 is insurances, rent, payroll, all that stuff, right? So it all comes down to that. As far as us being, wanting to work with, newer guys that are coming in the field, and obviously with newer guys that are coming in that industry or whatever business that they're doing, obviously the budgets are not there. So the one thing that I could say to that is if it's something that also interests us, that I could see like, okay, cool, like maybe you don't have the budget. Yeah, maybe you don't have the budget for it, but it makes sense for us to, to be positioned with you guys and make it a collaboration. And now, let's just take your clothing brand for example, right? Whether you have or not or don't have the budget doesn't matter. But let's just say, for the sake of the conversation, you don't have the budget, and it puts me in a position where it's like, okay, cool. But if I want to work with Nike, right, I need to show them that, hey, we've done work with apparel. Right? Or if I want to work with this other brand that kind of has the budget, but I don't have anything to show for it and say, hey, we could do this, then it makes sense for me to collaborate.
You get the exposure.
Because I could show them
the type of work that you do.
The type of work that I do within that same industry.
But also when you have like more of a startup type of company, as they're growing, obviously your marketing budget starts to grow too. So it could be like a long-term investment as well.
Yes, and I agree with that, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that with these type of companies, right?
It doesn't. Okay.
So what happens is, and this goes across the board, what happens is if you get something for free, you're not going to value it as much as you paid for it, right? So the moment that the company starts getting a budget for themselves, now they're saying, well, these guys, we used to do them for free. Let me try this other company now that is asking 4 times the amount of money that this guy's getting.
So you're basically giving the exposure for free,
and then they go and hire another company because now they're the professionals and you weren't professional enough because you were doing the work for free. So that's also a very thin line between like the people you work with, right? Like or the companies that you work with. That I found multiple times the hard way, because it was collaborating. It was, part of like, okay, cool, let's do this together. And then the moment that company got that budget, all of a sudden they spend it with someone else.
Yeah. So I do want to bring it back a little bit to the businesses that maybe are not too familiar of how social media marketing and the impact it has. And this is where you come in to say like, hey, if you do, some type of content, this is going to drive traffic. It's going to put you out there. Do you do that consulting upfront with businesses that actually don't have any idea about this world, and how does that impact their business?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't go around and, reaching out to these businesses and be like, hey, let me tell you about what you can do with this stuff, right? Like, and, there's been times where they reached out to me in a sense where like, can you do this one video? And, we could do this and we could do that. And then that's when I have that conversation with them where it's like, okay, well, that one video is not going to do you very good.
Yeah.
Because right now you're just starting out. You only have 50 followers, 100 followers, whatever the number is. And most likely all those followers are friends and family that if they're going to buy something, they're going to buy something regardless. They're not going to buy it because of that video. And, we get into the numbers where it's like, dude, you need something to post every day. And if you do something post every day, this is our budget, but obviously you can't afford our budget. And we could work on the first video, second video together if it's something that obviously we can relate to, right?
Yeah.
But also we do give that advice in a sense where it's like, you don't need my camera. You don't need my $10,000 setup camera. You could shoot this with your iPhone or whatever, right? Phones, right? Like thankfully cameras are everywhere now. Quality is one thing, but a story will never die. Right, so if you have a good story, if you have a good, ad, let's just say, or if you have a good, some type of way for a person that's watching it to connect to it, you don't need, my setup in that sense, right? So and then also at the same time, that's training for you, because now that's what I mean. You not meaning like you, but like that business, right? Because now you're doing it yourself. You're seeing all the work that goes into, and then when you do speak with me again or with another company that does that, you're going to speak a little bit different, right? Like, you're not going to think, the best keywords to kind of stay away from, like, as a business on our end is, can you do this simple video? Can you do this short video? Can you do this, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like any word that's kind of is gonna lower the quality off of the work, right? Just because it's, or the price, right? Because now they're thinking cheap, low, simple.
But when you're working on something that's simple, that actually can lower the quality of content that you want to and your branding as well.
It can and not, and obviously we have to define simple within like the perimeter of the content, right? But also it's to make something look simple might be more work than to make something look complicated. Okay. Right? Because if you're seeing a transition or a cut or something like that, and you didn't witness it, or you didn't think like, oh, that was a cut right there.
Yeah.
That's, for it to be not noticeable, it's a simple transition, but it actually took more work to actually make it.
I was going to say, in this field, simple is actually a lot of work, because you're trying to simplify a complicated shot to make it seem like seamlessly, like
Yes.
this natural thing, right? Which is, took a lot of
Yeah, that's
takes
what
to
I mean.
do
It
it.
took
Yeah.
a few takes. It took a different way of shooting it. It took
Angles and
angles.
yeah,
There's a lot of
I agree.
experience and a lot of things that go into simple.
But I do want to mention though that branding, right?
Yes.
Branding, it's a science on its own.
Yes.
And I think that this business falls it's very closely tied to branding, right?
Yes.
And because you're trying to tell a story,
Yes.
and you tell a story through different ways. You tell it through a camera, through voice, through an action. So your job is to storytell or to capture that story in a way that it's interesting to a consumer that says, hey, wow, you know what, that's a good story, I'm gonna buy
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah. I mean, often the conversation comes like, what's the difference between branding and marketing?
Yeah.
Right? Is it the same thing? Is it not? And, it falls down
It's not
into
the
many.
same. I
It's
don't
not.
think
It's
it's not the
definitely not the
same.
same.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But it also comes down to we're a brand new company, right? They're just starting out. Even if they wanted to brand, they really can't, because there's no story there. I mean, there might be like, oh, I dreamt of this to build it and to do this.
There's
and
always
that,
a
but that's
story, but depends on how you say it and how you tell
correct.
it.
But Nike's story did not come out when Nike was selling their first
I
sneakers.
mean, Nike's been around for many years.
Well, I'm just talking about that's going back to like when it first opened, right?
Yeah.
Like Nike's story started happening after 10, 15, 20 years of them being in business. So that's when their brand really started developing and targeting. I think as a brand new business, your number one priority is sales, right? You need to sell. As you sell and you make money, now you could afford to start building your brand, to start building the culture within your brand, to start having your employees understand, your vision and your way of doing the thing, right? And I think that takes time. So when new companies come in and say, "Oh man, we want to really work on our brand because the founder's story is really unique," but it's like, okay, but how many sales do you have? Like, who's gonna listen to this story? Like, who's gonna believe this story?
Well, I think it's a catch-22, right?
Okay.
So to me, I look at it this way: even if you're a new business, right, you have you don't have nothing to sell at this point because you're a new business. You're still building that story as you go,
Yes.
and the beauty about branding is that it never ends.
It keeps evolving.
Yes.
Right? It keeps developing through time.
Yes.
So even now we live in a different time with technologies everywhere and social media is everywhere. So it's a little bit easier compared to back then where there was no social media presence whatsoever. So you have to do everything the old traditional way. I feel like now any new business can blow up for any reason
Yes.
on social media because of something happened or it goes viral and all of a sudden a small company that nobody knew about, now it's very well known because of one video that went viral, right?
Yes, but they're not necessarily known because of their brand. They might be known
doesn't
because
matter,
of
but
what
see,
happened in that content.
that is part of their story. That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
that develops their branding automatically. The day one, I feel like you go public, you should go in social media the first day. Whatever it is, doesn't matter what kind of story it is, doesn't matter, who it is behind.
Agreed.
Even if do a small video of showing the product and posting it or doing something else with it, or another customer, selling and posting on your behalf and tagging. So it's constantly engagement, right? So, and I feel like in your business, you need to capture that and do it in a professional way that it's more enticing to people that watch it as a mass.
I agree, 100%. The only thing is that in most cases, professional way costs money,
Right.
right?
No,
and,
of course.
and in most cases, like when we're talking about a brand new business here, excuse me, that brand new business, the founder or the workers or whoever is part of it, right? They might not necessarily understand recording video or audio or podcasting or whatever, right? Like they're, it's one of those things where they're great at making, sneakers or, pizza or whatever the case is, right? Where now they don't want to be in front of a camera.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you often find people that are in front of cameras being really awkward, and they're not awkward people. They're really nice to speak to and stuff like that. But the moment that you turn that on, it's just like, whoa, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's fine. I mean, look, but that's where you come in, right? That's your expertise comes in and say, hey, we don't have to put you in front of the camera. We can do something else with it.
Right, let's use your product.
Let's do the product. They use somebody else. They use a model. They use someone, there's so many different things. But
100%.
what advice would you give to some of this, business owners now that are probably watching the show and say, hey, maybe I should look into this? Do you recommend them getting started with this as soon as possible, or
Yeah, I mean, yes,
not
I
as soon
mean,
as possible, but start early rather than just wait and just see,
obviously depending on the business, right? Like,
Yeah.
to each his own, right, in that sense. But and then also depending on that character of the person, right? My advice to any business out there is, especially if you have to deal with direct consumer, because we could do marketing for a consumer, you could do marketing for B2B,
Yeah.
business to business, right?
Yeah.
So like, some businesses don't really even need the consumer to be part of it, but then you need another business to hire you to do that, right? And
Right.
for those type of businesses, look into LinkedIn. Right? LinkedIn is a B2B platform. Really, that's what it comes down to. Now, you're a different business and you want to deal directly to the consumer, then obviously the Instagrams, the YouTubes, the TikToks, that's going to be like maybe your playing field. But my advice is absolutely get into it. Find out one way or the other whether, you need to be active. And for these, for these platforms to showcase your post to many, many other viewers, they're only going to do so if you're active and you have some type of scheduling posts, weekly, monthly, whatever it may be. But as
Yeah.
long as you're saying, hey, we're going to post every Tuesday, every week, you post every Tuesday, every week.
Yeah.
And give it time, but
That's what I do. I
it
post
works.
every Tuesday, every week.
I knew that.
So Renis, it was great talking to you, but tell us, what are your goals for the next chapter of your life in the business? Like, where do you see this business going?
Yeah, I mean, so we're only looking to grow here, right? That's our next goal, right? And we're in the process of growing. We actually are hiring. So any videographers, editors, cinematographers, directors, feel free to reach out back to us. We are hiring for this upcoming year.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, we're just looking to produce more.
And in different areas, not just
Yeah,
weddings,
absolutely. I
but-
mean, we do have clients in Cali. We do have clients in Chicago. We do have clients in Connecticut. I mean, we're I don't want to say we're all over the place, right, in that sense, but we do travel a fair amount, and again, I'm not necessarily looking to travel that much personally.
Yeah.
I do have 3 kids at home and a wife that I love very much.
and your
Nice
and your
plug-in.
weekends are already pretty much booked for work.
Yeah,
So
of course. But
that
yeah,
must
I
be
mean,
hard, actually.
it's a little tough, but I mean, it's getting a bit easier just because with scheduling now, I am not as much on every wedding, right? In the sense of
You built
like,
your team.
or at least a full wedding, right? So it's like I'll do stops where it's like I'll come to the bride and get her ready, and then I'll leave and then go to a park with a different bride and get her like at the park there, and then maybe go to the reception in the end and kind of make my appearance there. But we do have a full-on solid team that everything that goes through after the editing and everything like that, it goes through myself and my wife, because we always needed that woman's touch, like just to kind of say, you know what, this is a beautiful shot, and it was, the angles are perfect, but she's not gonna like herself because this is showing or whatever that is, and that's something that
I do want to mention, because you do other projects that are nothing to do with weddings or businesses. So I know you did the recording of Prime Minister Edi Rama this year.
Yeah, we did the live stream.
That was a fun project. I didn't expect you to see.
Yeah,
That must have been stressful too. At the same time,
that was one of our.
It was live in how many different countries?
I mean, over 20, I think. I don't know
think it was
what the numbers
22,
were.
yeah.
22 countries or something like that. I mean, it was live all over the world, but those 22 countries, like how you get the algorithm back to tell you where it was streaming and whatever, the majority of numbers, it was all over the place. And that happened like super like casual, like the sense where it's a client of ours. They were somehow involved in him coming here and kind of doing their own thing, and then kind of like giving him the whole, the stage and getting
Part of
everybody
the
together.
organizing, yeah.
Yes. They were like, hey man, do you live stream? I was like, yeah. Well, what's gonna happen? He's like, well, this is gonna happen. I was like, oh, okay. Well, let me get back to you. I said, I called, I called a few of the members of the team. I said, listen, we're looking for some, really, really good guys that, showed themselves and throughout the whole time to live stream. And live stream is not necessarily hard in a sense, but you need specific equipment that's not going to fail and, is going to stay connected to the internet the whole time and all that stuff, right? So that's what kind of like we were lacking on, and that's why I was looking for like someone to come in and have that equipment, or at least know how to use that equipment at 100%. And we did find a great team. They came in. We did it. It was one of my most stressful weeks of me being in business, honestly, just because, again, there was a lot of stress. I told a few people back home as well, too, like a few family members. And I'm like, oh, we can't wait to see it. I was like, wait a second. Now they're all going to see
Now
it.
they're gonna judge how well you recorded.
Yeah, and it's all live, right? Like, so you can't re-edit it or anything like that. But it was a very, very fun experience. I'm not into politics, so I can't really tell you, go Eddie Rama or go whoever's he going against.
You were there doing a job.
Yeah.
We were just doing our job. He speaks really, really well. And based on what he said, I really liked. But then again, it's politics. So
Yeah. Any other special projects you're working on that you want to share with us?
We actually just uploaded DJ Jack's music video.
Oh, very nice.
It's called Diaspora. And when Jack came and, we were talking, I worked with him prior. We were on a couple of other videos as well, too. But when he came in and he's like, we want to do this Diaspora video. I was like, cool, what's the song about? And, I heard the song, and it's really us, right? Like, it's us leaving our country, coming out here, making it. And then also within the whole song, we also had a little bit of storyline where this couple, with his friends, a guy and a girl, they were back home and they said goodbye to each other because the guy was coming to New York. And then after many years, the girl also came in New York, and they kind of found themselves in Central Park, kind of like.
So you got the little wedding kind of vibe going on.
No love in the sense of
story.
there was a story there where it was just like,
Storyline.
we showed the diaspora, which was us and the kids. We had a bunch of kids, we had a bunch of dancers, in New York, kind of waving flags and having that whole presence of like Albanians, away from Albania. And then we also showed the heartbreak of it, right? Like when we all left our countries, our countries, like when we all left Albania.
Yeah.
I'm sure you had friends, you had cousins, you had relatives that you said goodbye to, and maybe you cried or maybe you felt bad or whatever the case was. And then for them to come back here, that was kind of like
I was so excited to leave,
ending.
so I did not really care much. I was so happy, like, I'm going to America.
Sweet. How old were you when you came here?
13.
13, yeah, so same age. I cried when I said goodbye to my cousins, man. My first cousins, my
I was
Chunateses.
like, peace.
I was really emotional about that. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, Renis, it was a pleasure having you on the show and talking about a little bit of your background in the business. We hope to hear more projects from you.
Thank you for having me, man.
Any future projects that you want to share with us, please let us know.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you.
Come back again.
Thank
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.